Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening to those of you around the world. Welcome to the daily Trade the Chain crypto update, where we give you everything you need to know for the next 24 hours and hopefully the next few days. Today is Monday, October 30th, and we are hoping for a good end to October and a continuation of obviously what we saw in October into November and hopefully December. Maybe get a little bit of that, that Santa rally kicking. But it is important to note before we go over the Trade the Chain dashboard, I think probably the biggest landmine for the week is, of course, the FOMC meeting on Wednesday at 2 p.m. So 2 p.m. is when we will get the rate hike or lack thereof. Right now, 96% chance of no rate hike, so only a 4% chance of a hike. So pretty good chances for flat rates into the next FOMC meeting. And then at 2:30 is where the red herrings come in, because that is when Fed Chair Powell has his press conference and Q&A. That is typically when we get forward guidance on Fed outlook. Are they pleased or displeased with inflation and unemployment? Do they think that they will have to hike again? Is the current Fed funds rate sufficiently restrictive or not? These are some of the key words that we will have to listen to. But right now, it seems that if we look at equities, seems to be maybe any hawkishness is priced in, and then crypto doesn't seem to care. So as long as he's not hawkish, meaning he's everything is kind of moving in the right in the right way. They're not they don't really think that they're going to hike rates either in the next meeting or in the next few meetings. These are very good kind of language or pieces of language that we want to hear. So let's move into what's going on in the markets. Crypto total market cap 1.28 trillion, up 0.99% in the past 24 hours. Bitcoin is up, ETH is up. ETH is up a little bit more than Bitcoin too. So we'll definitely discuss ETH BTC. Bitcoin daily sentiment is around that neutral level, and ETH is actually a bit bearish, but if we go and look at the charts, we're not seeing too much negative price action. So it seems that maybe people are bearish on a Monday. It wouldn't be unusual. Mondays are historically the worst day. But if we see bearish sentiment with price pushing higher, that typically means that, shorters are going to get blown out. Bears are going to get blown out. So, definitely something to keep in mind moving forward. We got some, top price gainers. We've seen a lot of these, Core, TRB, Poly. These are probably three that you want to keep on a watch list in the near term, as we've been seeing explosive price action out of each of them. And of course, bullish daily sentiment right here. Another thing to look at is stablecoin exchange flows. We did see actually a good bit of withdrawals off exchanges today. Now, again, it is Monday. Could be a bit of a red herring, but always something to consider. And then this is very interesting. 2.44% of COTI added to exchanges, as well as Lena. So what I would look out for on at least these four is potential boosts in the near term as they margin coins, or they margin the coins for longs. These could be, the list of new outperformers in the near term, because typically we do see this supply as being long-term bearish, but very much short-term bullish if they margin them for long trades. So something to look out for there. Let's move over to DXY, which, as we can see, is dropping. It did have it had a pretty nice midweek, as it swept that last week's low, ran last week's high, and now we're just kind of stuck in this range. So this is a very critical area right here, basically these lows and these highs. If we sweep these lows again, that does set us up. You could potentially see an inverse head and shoulders here, and then price action moves higher. So let me get rid of these earlier arrows, because obviously it moved down. But something like that would be pretty bearish for probably equities. And of course, we do have to remember Wednesday is FOMC, so you will see DXY move, in a pretty extreme fashion. I would assume maybe a Darth Maul candle, maybe big red candle, but we'll have to see. So basically, if we sweep this level, that is pretty bullish for DXY, bearish for risk. If we end up dropping down here and break this level, that would be pretty good for risk, because then we would, the next stop would probably be down here at 104 0.6. So, and then obviously in the off chance that we somehow, climb back above this 106.2 level, if we, continue, if we just bounce here and move higher, equal lows, and then, a higher high and then a higher low, that would be market structure to move higher. So let me get rid of these lines so you can see that. So you see equal lows, you got a higher high right here. If this ends up being a higher low, DXY will then likely move higher. And that would probably not be good for risk markets, at least, more so equities, because obviously crypto has been rolling, but it is something to consider as, crypto is not pumped, too hard until, DXY came down. Like, let's look at Bitcoin. When did the pump really start to begin? In October, it was, right around October 2nd, which is, well, that's not when the pump really began, but that was when, October 2nd is when DXY cooled off. And then right here around the 10th or the 11th is when Bitcoin really started to, find some legs. That was its bottom. And then it ran pretty high. So we have not really seen, DXY affecting crypto too much, but I would assume if it breaks above this high right here, that would definitely put some fear, and I believe all risk asset classes. Then if it breaks this low down here, that would put a big bullish boost in a lot of risk asset classes. So we're still kind of confined to this range, but starting to see the forest of the trees a little bit. And it will definitely be decided on a higher low here or a break of these lows. So let's move over to equities, which, so far so good. You remember this is, we closed down here last Friday to see, so to see a recovery and to, have a stab above this resistance level of 4150 is definitely a good thing. But as these lines indicate, we need to get above, we need to hold above 4150, and then we can get up to 4200 and, hopefully higher. And then if we reject here again at 4150, we will probably attack these lows again. And then hopefully you get a sweep of the lows to move higher, or obviously you get a break of those lows and move lower. So no real decision for equities, but I think zooming out a little bit will give us a bit better of a look, because equities are reaching an area where you would start to want to buy. Basically anything in this range is a buy until that range breaks, in my opinion. If that range breaks, I should say until. But let's, so we're on the 12-hour. We get basically this is a massive order block. We're sitting pretty much on the lower half of that order block, and we had a nice bounce, but we are rejecting again at 4150. So if we zoom out to the daily, you can see it a little bit better, but still that daily candle, that daily wick, let me zoom in a little bit here for you. This daily wick is still beneath 4150, which could end up with sweeping these lows again. So what you want to see again is 4150 critical level, break above that, get back here. And then, really the bull bear trend break is going to be, this estimated trend moving average, because swept, moved higher, and then basically ended up being a giant deviation again and moved lower. So ideally what you want to see here is, hold this level right here, obviously, move back above 4150, slowly climb your way back up to this 4250, 4260 area. And then if you can break above that, then, this line is kind of moving down here. And then you've got this massive deviation that could potentially propel you back to, 4400s, 4500s. So that's the ideal scenario. And then, like I said, if we, get cut down again at 4150, you better hope these lows hold, or we may end up sweeping the 4050 level before any sort of reversal. And of course, we do have FOMC, on Wednesday, so that could be kind of a make or break point. I'll kind of draw a line right here. That's, that line right there is going to be FOMC. So it could be a big make or break point. Hopefully we move higher. I would love to see equities break above 4,200, because then you've already kind of got the start to a deviation, right? That's you've got, some support here, which is now resistance, but a nice deviation above that. And your deviation above the 1 day estimated trend moving average looks a lot better. So I know I'm drawing a lot of lines here, but there's a lot to consider as the week starts, especially with FOMC staring us down. So let's move back to Bitcoin, which doesn't look too bad, but obviously is stalling and has not really moved too much since the US market opened today. So the way that I'm looking at things is we can get above the 34.8, 34.9, which is really the edge of last week's value. Then we can move back up to this high right here. And then if we can get back above that high, then we can start to, we should kind of, if we can break above this and confirm it, I mean, a break could, bring a laser up to 37K, but 37K is really where I'm looking at next. So, but that requires a break of these highs at 35.2, 35.3. But right now, definitely looking more likely than not. And then in the off chance, we've still got this critical level here at 34.4, which I believe, coincides with either March or February's low. Let's double check this. So yeah, it's the low from February 24th. So I'm still keeping that there, although it's not entirely critical for short-term price action. It definitely matters for some higher term price action. So the way I'm looking at it is you kind of ignore this for price action right now, but basically if we break beneath these lows right here, which is the new week's low, so this is technically Monday's low as it stands right now. And if we break below Monday's low, then we'll probably end up, dropping to these lows, which is also last week's weekly VWAP, which is sometimes a magnet, especially if you do get some sort of early week reversal. So that is what I'm seeing as kind of downside target. And as you'll notice, if we do start to move down, this is going to start to creep up here, and then there'll be kind of, multiple areas of confluence. 1 day estimated moving average, weekly VWAP, previous low from last Friday. So a lot of action to be had down there, but I did not mean to zoom out. But we could just kind of get stuck in between something like this until something happens more. So very much something to consider. I think alts are probably going to have more fun with Bitcoin kind of ranging and chilling than Bitcoin itself. But obviously time will tell. And if we do break above 34.8, 34.9. Things get a lot more fun and friendly. And of course, we are still staying above the weekly VWAP so far, and we are above yesterday's close. So, right now, bulls are sitting in a good position, but have to consider all areas. In my opinion, the more likely outcome is going to be higher, just based on, all of the indicators that I'm seeing right now. But in the off chance we do get a red candle, I'll be looking at 33.5 as a very critical level down here. Looking at, let's look at ETH first. I was on the sold chart because I will be honest, I did call a short on this before I left for the weekend. I ended up telling the TTC community I closed that out at only a 5% after I saw this, these wicks and that buyback. So I only got, a couple percentage points on a 10x short, but I'm very glad that I exited it for a small piece of change because obviously Sol is quite strong. And this is also why we pay attention to the weekly VWAP, because it tapped on that area twice before exploding. And, when you hold the weekly VWAP, usually a pretty bullish sign. So no real, price, indication for Sol. But if we just kind of zoom out a little bit, just because I'm here, you can see that the next target that I would have for resistance is probably up here at around 38. So if Bitcoin and ETH are moving higher, I would definitely expect Sol to do something like this, but I would not discount, maybe a return back to maybe 34 flat before doing something there. So tough to bet on Sol after a big boost in the morning, but I would say, more likely than not, it ends up moving higher throughout this week based on the early trajectory. So let's move over to ETH. Now, ETH is, and actually let's start with ETH BTC, because I think this is fascinating and something that I talked about last week. There was no point in diving in right around here. It hadn't even retested the trend. It started to retest the trend Saturday, broke it into Sunday, and then we got a massive deviation here. So if I'm kind of looking at this, from a, deviation perspective, this is actually pretty good. Broke the trend, reclaimed the trend. Hopefully we get kind of, something like this, and then it does something like that. Obviously it could, do something like that too, but, reclaiming that trend is a good start for the bulls. And we do know that when Bitcoin relaxes, alts do have fun, and kind of the granddaddy of alts is Ethereum. So Let's move back to the Ethereum chart and check it out. Now, this is much more, I think, simple in terms of like a range bound trading perspective. As you can see, these lines, this is basically one giant range. Then you've got kind of like your quadrants of the range sitting in here the way that I've got it drawn out. So basically we're sitting in like this is basically where my cursor is right here, right around 1800 is basically the middle of the range, right? It's mid range. So up here, top 25%, middle 25%, middle 25%, lower 25%. So we're in the kind of the upper middle area. And so if we break above 1828, then we should move up to 1860, which is obviously the high from last week. If we break below the weekly VWAP and 1800, 1802, then we'll drop down to 1778, and then below 1778, which of course is again Monday's low as it stands right now. We go below Monday's low, then we have 1750, and then a sweep of that level would be pretty bullish, or a sweep of Monday's low, which like I said 1777, would be pretty bullish as well. So this is just how I'm looking at things right now. Obviously nothing has really happened, but ETH is slowly kind of grinding up towards this 1828 number, and so a clean break above 1828 should send us to 1860, and then a clean break of 1860 should send us up to 1900, so something like that. And then let's kind of zoom out just to get a bit better lay of the land now, because ETH is obviously a lot more confusing, but the way that I've got my lines drawn out, little bit less important on this daily candle. This pertains more to the range. And then 1900, you got your nice round number here. And then you've got kind of these highs right here to contend with if you can get above 1900. So 1975, right around $2,000 up here. You've got these wicks hanging out right here. So I'm really thinking that we should see ETH in the like 2020 to 2040. Like this is basically just a big demand zone, in my opinion. And then it gets a little bit tougher above 1977 because that's the high from July 1st. But the 13th of July, or the 14th, I should say, is coincides with that 2030 number up here. So basically, and I'm gonna get rid of these because I think the daily candles actually look pretty darn good right now. I don't know why you would sell this ETH daily. You wouldn't. So right now, as long as this trend continues, hoping we see, a green soldier close like this above yesterday's, wick, and then we get another green soldier up here, and then, we break above this level and then start zooming. So I think that time is coming for ETH. Obviously, we still have FOMC to deal with and some weird earnings. Like if Apple has horrible earnings, I'm sure that's going to, pause everything as that sells off. But I do like the look of ETH right now. And, if not now, then when? So it's kind of how I'm looking at it. But, critical levels that you need to break. You need to break 1830 to get up to 1860. Once you get above 1860, you've got the nice round number of 1900 to contend with. And then if you can get above 1900, then you should be able to get up to 20 to maybe at minimum 2000, but I'd say 2020 to 2040 would be pretty good targets. So I know today is Monday, but we're not seeing really any selling on Monday. We're just seeing kind of consolidation into Tuesday, which is historically one of the best days in the market. Certainly a good indication for now. Doesn't mean it will last, and we are seeing. I'm watching a little bit of selling in Bitcoin since we started this show. And obviously, we did discuss what downside price targets look like, but we are still above the previous daily close. We are still above the weekly VWAP, and we are still above Monday's low. So those are kind of three critical levels that I think, price will contend at to stay above heading into Tuesday. So right now, in my opinion, although definitely a little scary right here, maybe a small pullback, maybe some more consolidation, but things do look pretty good heading into the rest of the week, surprisingly enough. So if we get kind of two good Mondays, obviously this is the best Monday ever, but not seeing selling on a Monday is certainly a good indication for strength continuation into the rest of the week. So with that being said, good luck, happy trading. See everybody tomorrow.